Pokemon, as it were, has felt like a dangerous topic to talk about in recent years. Ever since its historic jump into 3 dimensions with Pokemon X and Y, it seems like fans have been completely divided on the franchise. Some will argue that Sword and Shield were the best games in the series. Some will argue that it's become benign trash that's so watered down that it's insulting to the intelligence of the literal toddlers they advertise to. And then there's my wife, whose favorite game is Sun and Moon, and I don't even ask me about that. I don't understand it. It's by far my least favorite thing about her. Don't talk to me about it. So, what is Game Freak to do? Maybe they could try to reach out and listen to their fans? Maybe try something new and fresh to shake things up? Maybe reinvigorate a game that's been basically copy and pasted ever since 1996? No, said Game Freak in 2016 when they released Sun and Moon. Why not keep everything exactly the same? We'll just let fanboys on Twitter defend us and send death threats to anyone who dares say something crazy like, this could be improved somewhat. No, said Game Freak yet again in 2019 with the release of Sword and Shield. Actually, moreover, let's lie to the fan base about new models and new animations. And also, we won't include all the Pokemon because we don't wanna. Even though we are going to continue to use the exact same models we've been using since X and Y. But, you know, if anyone says anything about it, we'll just let fanboys on Twitter defend us and send death threats to anyone who dares say something crazy like, hey, lying to your customers is bad. Okay, fine, Game Freak finally said in 2021 when they announced a new mainline game in the series, a direct sequel to Diamond and Pearl that would be in a whole new and unique open world style. That's the game I want to look at today, and I want to analyze whether I think Pokemon has finally successfully transitioned into the 21st century. I'm the Cardboard Robot, and this is a review of Pokemon Legends Arceus. So, the basic story, without getting into any real spoilers, is as such. Pokegod sends you far back in time to the Sinnoh region, which was at the time called Hisui, to find every type of Pokemon. He does this by pooping you out of a time rift in the sky that stands there menacingly, and no one seems worried about it, at all. When you do get to the past, you find people who are terrified and can hardly live with Pokemon, but still want to study them nonetheless. This is Galaxy Team, a group dedicated to understanding Pokemon and taming the harsh landscape of the Hisui region. Everyone in the world shits their pants when they find out that you are good enough of a Pokemon trainer to catch a whole 6 Bidoofs, and they immediately sign you up to join them and help their research. Not long after, you get to meet the ancestral people of the Hisui region, the Diamond and Pearl clans. These two kind of have a begrudging peace, which is made all the more politically complicated when Pokemon that the clans view as holy start becoming insanely violent and horribly injuring people. So, to keep the peace and make sure neither clan has to put down a holy symbol of the other, it becomes your job as a 15-year-old to go track them and calm them down. Because, you know, you're the chosen one who can catch many a Bidoof without even breaking a sweat. So you're really the only one in the world qualified to handle a giant rampaging monster. And just in case you zoned out during that long speech, just think of In Another World with my smartphone, because it's basically the plot of the entire series. Except with more of these little guys. So you're off to quell these giant beasts by throwing bags of food at them and dodging their attacks until their little tumbly-wumblies are all full. You can trick them into slamming into rocks or trees and then use your Pokemon to damage them while they're stunned, but honestly, I found it way more fun to treat it like a Dark Souls boss and just dodge roll my way to victory. And the story overall is pretty decent, and it does have a few twists and turns, some of which are very obvious, and a few are a little less expected. Honestly, as far as modern Pokemon games go, I think the story is without question better than what we've seen with the last previous few installments. Narratively, it does kind of have some of the same issues I've had with, pretty much all Pokemon games in recent history. It's long-winded, a lot of the information is repeated over and over again, the characters are mostly bland and uninteresting. The story's passable, but that too is a little bit bland. It does, of course, feature my favorite Pokemon writing trope where, you'll confront the bad guys and you'll beat them in a Pokemon battle, and then they'll go, damn, you've bested me, time to make my speedy getaway! And then they'll just, casually walk away as the protagonists go, wait, no, stop. Damn, we did our best to stop them, but they got away. That's another thing, the cutscenes, they leave a lot to be desired. Essentially, if anything happens that isn't a character moving slightly or changing facial expressions, instead of showing them doing any action, the game will default fade to black. And then, they'll show the aftermath of the action while explaining what the person or Pokemon did while the screen was black. And these are small things, but they do take away from the overall immersion and storytelling. And frankly, between you and I, it's a little awkward to see in a game released in 2022. If you were either one of the people worried or hoping that Pokemon Legends would just be a copy-paste of Breath of the Wild with Bidoof scattered throughout, it's not. It definitely tries to be. Here's the thing. It feels like it wants to be an open-world game that lets you go off on your own and explore and be left to your own devices, just like Breath of the Wild, but it's got one giant Pikachu-shaped problem. It's a Pokemon game, so it has to handhold you through the entire experience. You're not allowed to play for more than 10 minutes without a long-winded cutscene or an NPC telling you how to do something you've been doing the whole time. Especially in the beginning. The beginning's the worst part. Towards the end, you can kind of pace yourself out around the cutscenes, but in the beginning, I was getting so frustrated by the second hour of playing the game when I was still in the middle of the tutorial section. That's not an exaggeration either. I streamed Arceus on the day it came out. I streamed for nearly 2.5 hours, and I was almost at the tail end of the tutorial. And when I say that the cutscenes are long-winded, believe me, I'm not kidding. If you're dragged into plot progression, you should expect not to be allowed to play for at least 10 minutes. The characters will go on, repeating themselves over and over, recapping everything you've been told thus far, and throwing out barely even a scrap of new information. And then, at the end, they'll just tell you where you need to go next. It's honestly by far the worst part of the storytelling, which is a shame because I like the story, but, it just wouldn't be a Pokemon game if it wasn't long-winded as hell. Honestly, this all makes the game feel like it's held back by fear in this way. It's like they wanted to make a new kind of Pokemon game that let the player explore the open world and get to have the true free-range Pokemon adventure that we've always wanted. But, they were a little too scared to let go of the lead. I don't know if they were worried that the youngest members of their fan base would be too confused by not having every action guided and directed like a traditional Pokemon kind of way, or if that's the only way Pokemon games are allowed to be made by Nintendo's developmental guidelines. Either way, it held the game back from really showing off and reaching what I consider could be its full potential. That all being said, when the game does let go of the reins and just lets you go out and explore, it's such a wonderful experience. The main gameplay loop is so satisfying. Plus, the game adds a lot of new things, like it gives you a lot of options when it comes to each and every one of your individual Pokemon. You can change their movesets at any time from the pause menu, you can change their name at any time, you can choose when your Pokemon evolves instead of it automatically evolving when the level's reached. On the flip side of that, when it comes to customization for your own character, the game kind of feels undeniably lacking. Even when compared to more modern Pokemon games, there are hardly any options when it comes to clothes, but especially hairstyles. And you can unlock more, but honestly, it's barely worth it. You'll notice in the footage, if you're paying attention, from the time I get the Growlithe set, I barely ever change clothes. And that's because there's nothing I really want to change into. And don't get me wrong, this is not a huge game-breaking issue, considering, it doesn't really affect the main gameplay in any way, but it is something I consider. As far as the gameplay loop itself, I don't really know how to describe it except boring, but in a good way. I spent hours on end just catching Pokemon and doing Pokedex tasks, and it simultaneously felt like I was doing nothing and doing a whole bunch at the same time. And that's one thing I'll say about this game. It's definitely a grade A time sink. I could spend hours looking for satchels, doing tasks, or just running in circles collecting items. And honestly, I never feel like I was either putting in a great deal of effort or wasting my time. It's a very weird but serene feeling. It kind of has Animal Crossing vibes in that way. Oh, the game also introduces the concept of alpha Pokemon. They're like any other Pokemon you can expect to encounter in the wild, except they big. They real big. And it's such a silly concept, and it's honestly shockingly simple, and I cannot begin to tell you how much I love them. They're so big and stupid and goofy, and I spent so much time trying to catch as many as I could. And honestly, even when you get bored with one aspect of the game loop, there's so much to do that you can easily just completely shift focus and really not feel like you've lost anything. Get bored of doing Pokedex tasks? Well, go alpha hunting. Get tired of that? Well, go exploring. Well, I'm tired of that. Go watch some story cutscenes. Get tired of watching the cutscenes? go do some side quests, and on, and then just repeat. This makes the game feel like there's always something else to do, even if you're getting bored with doing a particular thing. And frankly, I never get bored with just riding around or running and exploring. I love the exploration aspects of this game so much. I love sneaking to catch Pokemon. I love unlocking new Pokemon to ride and explore on, and then going back to older areas with new ride Pokemon and getting to explore those all over again. You can fly, you can swim, you can ride on a deer. It's great. You can spend countless hours catching Pokemon and collecting crafting items and reorganizing your inventory. And to be honest, the biggest complaint I have with the game, the absolute by far worst part of the game, is when it brings everything to a slamming halt to try to make me play Pokemon. Whenever I see a trainer battle coming up, I get shivers down my spine. I don't want it. Keep it away from me. Especially when it makes you do a trainer battle that's like 3 trainer battles back to back. It brings the game to an absolute halt. And to be fair, that didn't feel great, and there were also a couple other parts of the game that I felt were specifically unpolished. I had times where I would load in, and I'd have to wait like 5 seconds for the world around me to load. There were a lot of times that Pokemon would just appear out of thin air in front of me as I walked around. Same problem I had with Sword and Shield. And honestly, I had a lot of issues with the Electrode fight specifically, because Electrode would stop doing pre-attack animations. Or, on one attempt specifically, it wouldn't let me send out Pokemon after I stunned him, so I just kept trying to throw out Rhydon, and the Pokeball would hit the ground, come back to me, hit the ground, come back to me, and then he teleported on top of me and I died. And these aren't big gripes. Certainly they don't make the game bad, but they really tie into my overall feelings about this game, Game Freak as a whole, and how there's just a lot of potential that isn't getting fulfilled. Okay, let's talk this out. When I do retrospective videos, I talk about how I don't really care about graphics and I care about artistic choices. That's true, but we do have to consider that this game was made in the year of our Lord Arceus 2022. So now I'd like to talk about what is by far my biggest gripe, the graphics. I want to talk about the character models. Can we talk about the character models for a second?
They might fine up close,
God,
but
if
you're
more
than
clearly made up of copies
away from one of those
games.
games.
That's what you're 2020 frames, right? I don't think they've ever... Okay. Now that that's all out of my system, this was the part I was kind of loathing. Because when I sit down and look at it, there are a ton of things I could nitpick about this game, and a lot of things I could point out where Game Freak desperately needs to improve to move their way into modern platform gaming. Their games, in a lot of ways, feel like they're being designed for a cheaper mobile system. There's a lot of shortcuts and shortcomings with their games, and Arceus isn't an exception. Now, that being said, something Game Freak understands very well, and kind of always has understood very well, is what's fun and what keeps people coming back to Pokemon. The new implementations they added into this game are, for the most part, great. The shift in gameplay and the opening to the idea of an open world really shows a dedication to modernization and a company that's finally starting to listen to its fan base instead of resting on its laurels. This game gives me a lot of hope. I love this game. I had a shitload of fun playing this game. I played this game for nearly 30 hours the weekend it came out, and came out of that experience with nothing but a handful of admittedly small issues to gripe about. So maybe some really good things are finally on the horizon for Pokemon as a franchise. Perhaps this series will finally be able to let go of the status quo a little bit and experiment with itself. Perhaps it will have a little bit more faith in its player base and allow a game that doesn't feel like it needs to handhold you the entire time. Legends Arceus felt like it was such a good first step in the right direction. And I'm begging you, Game Freak, I'm begging you to just keep trucking forward. Stop listening to the most toxic part of your community. Stop listening to the people who still claim that Generation 1 is the best generation despite not having played Red or Blue in 20 years. Don't listen to the people who are angry that shiny hunting is easier in Arceus because when they were 13, they soft reset the game for fucking 30 hours to get a shiny Mudkip. Just keep moving forward. Honestly, I'd give this game a solid 7.5 out of 10. And I desperately beseech you to buy this game if you have any interest. Not only because I think it's really fun and worth playing despite all of its small faults, but also because I really want this game to sell like crazy so that Game Freak can finally have the courage to explore themselves. Hey, thanks to everyone who stuck through all the way to the end. If you like what you saw, it would really mean a lot to me if you could subscribe or at least give a good thumbs up on the video. If you want to see more of my content, please check out another one of my videos, or you can check me out on Twitch where I stream pretty regularly. Other than that, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.